From the day Mama BC left their house, Mrs. Finka's heart was no longer at peace. Every night, she tossed and turned in her bed, thinking about Bimbo. What if Mama BC is right? She asked herself again and again. Bimbo could really be the cause of the accident we had, simply because I didn't allow her to travel with us. I really need to see the prophet. Yes, I must go and see the prophet. And God save her if my instinct is right, because if she has a hand in this, I will skin her alive. From that day on, things began to change gradually. Mrs. Finka stopped smiling at Bimbo. She became cold and distant, just like in the old days. Sometimes she stared at Bimbo with suspicion, remembering Mama BC's words. If Bimbo travels abroad, she will become greater than your children. Mrs. Finka could not wait anymore. She needed to see the prophet. She needed answers. Finally, the day came. Mrs. Finka's heart was beating fast as she entered the prophet's church with Mama Bishi. The church was very small, hidden at the end of a dusty street. The walls were old and cracked. A feathered signboard hung outside. Mountain of Divine Mercy Church. Inside, it smelled of burning incense and dusty carpets. The floor was rough with old mats spread everywhere. A few people in white garments sat quietly in a corner humming soft songs. The prophet sat on a big wooden chair in the middle of the room, wearing a long white robe and a red scarf tied around his waist. His eyes were closed, and he muttered prayers under his breath. Mrs. Finka and Mama Bishi knelt in front of him, bowing their heads. After a long silence, the prophet opened his eyes and stared at them. His eyes were red and heavy, as if he hadn't slept in days. He spoke slowly, in a deep voice that made Mrs. Finka shiver. "My daughters," he began, "there is a strong enemy in your house, very strong. And you are the one feeding this enemy." Mrs. Finka looked up, confused. "Man of God, please help me. Who is the enemy?" she asked, seeing a vision. He shook his head sadly and pointed at Mrs. Finka. "The girl you are keeping in your house, the one you call your stepdaughter. Bimbo." He said her name slowly like a curse. Mrs. Finka gasped and covered her mouth. "She is the reason for your pain," the prophet said. "She is the reason for the accident that almost took your life." Mama BC slapped her lap loudly. "I knew it," she cried. "I told you, didn't I?" Mrs. Finka's hands trembled. "But how? She is just a child," she said in a shaking voice. The prophet shook his head again. "You don't understand. Bimbo has called the spirit of her late mother to fight you. She is using spirit forces. That is why the journey you planned failed. That is why she remained behind. She wanted. You want to suffer and die." Tears rolled down Mrs. Funk's cheeks. Her heart was breaking. She remembered how she had always pitied Bimbo when she first married her, how she had tried to help her. "Is this how she replaced me?" she thought bitterly. The prophet suddenly stood up, hitting his staff on the floor. "You must chase her away," he shouted. "She is evil. If you don't, she will destroy your children. She will destroy your home." Mrs. Funk fell to the ground weeping. "But my husband loves her too much," she said. "He is planning to send her to America for further studies." The prophet's face changed immediately. "Never," he roared. "If that girl steps her foot on foreign soil, you are finished. Your family is finished." Mrs. Funk cried harder. Mama Bishi bent down and hugged her. "My sister, listen to the man of God," Mama Bishi said. "You must stop that travel. You must protect your own children first." The prophet raised his hand and prayed loudly in a strange tongue. Then he looked at Mrs. Funk again and said, "You must act fast. Bring 1 million naira. I will pray a special prayer for you so that your husband's heart will turn against the girl. Only then will you have peace." Without thinking, Mrs. Funk agreed. "I will bring it today," she said. She took out her phone and transferred the money immediately to the account the prophet gave her. The prophet smiled faintly. He sprinkled some holy water on Mrs. Funk and Mama Bishi, then asked them to go home and wait for the prayers to work. As they left the church, Mrs. Funk felt mixed emotions. She felt scared, betrayed, angry, all at once. She looked at Mama Bishi and said, "Thank you, my sister. You have opened my eyes." Mama Bishi smiled sweetly. "Anything for you, my dear. Anything to protect your children." They drove home in silence. Mrs. Funk's heart was heavy, but she was also determined. She would never allow Bimbo to ruin her home. What she didn't know was that she had just stepped into a bigger trap. That night, after visiting the prophet, Mrs. Funk couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned on her big bed, staring at the ceiling. She kept hearing the prophet's voice in her head. Chase her away. She will destroy your family. She is evil. Fear filled her heart. She thought of her son Dio and her daughter Titi. I cannot allow anything bad to happen to them, she told herself. Meanwhile, in another house across town, Mama Bishi was busy too. But she wasn't praying or fasting. She was sitting with the same prophet, counting money and laughing. Half for me, half for you, Mama Bishi said, smiling wickedly. The prophet nodded and packed his own share of the money inside a black nylon bag. They had planned everything from the beginning. Mama Bishi had told the prophet everything about Bimbo, Mr. Funk, and the planned trip abroad. They used the information to lie to Mrs. Funk and scare her. The prophecy was fake. The only real thing was Mrs. Funk's fear. That woman is a fool, Mama Bishi said, shaking her head. Imagine giving us 1 million naira just like that. They laughed louder. She is too jealous, the prophet said. Jealousy will always make people blind. They clinked their soft drinks together like tea. Plan in her heart. Her eyes were cold as ice. Her smile was fake. She cooked breakfast but didn't give Bimbo any food. She only served Dio a large plate of rice and chicken. When Bimbo came to the dining table and greeted politely, Mrs. Funk frowned. What are you looking at? She snapped. Go and wash the plates in the kitchen. Bimbo looked surprised. But Ma, I haven't eaten, she said quietly. Mrs. Funk's eyes burned with anger. Did you come to this house to eat? She shouted. Be grateful you even have a roof over your head. Bimbo quietly turned away, wiping tears from her eyes. She walked to the kitchen, her stomach rumbling from hunger and anger. From that day, life became hell for Bimbo again. Mrs. Funk insulted her over every little mistake. She sometimes locked the kitchen so that Bimbo could not find anything to eat. She made Bimbo scrub the floors until her knees hurt. She shouted at her for no reason. She treated her like a stranger, and yet, when Mr. A.D. came back home from work in the evenings, Mrs. Funk would smile sweetly and pretend to be kind. Bimbo could not tell Mr. A.D. what was happening. She was too scared. Maybe I just have to endure, she thought to herself. Maybe things will get better. But unknown to her, things were about to get worse. A few days later, Mr. A.D. came home from work looking tired but happy. He had just won a huge contract in the country's capital. He called his wife to share the good news. Pack my suitcase, he said to Mrs. Funk. I have a business trip. The road construction contract I've been pursuing. 4 years has finally clicked. I will be gone for 1 week to finalize the deal with the federal government. Mrs. Funk's heart jumped with joy. Good, she thought. Now I can deal with Bimbo without anyone stopping me. The next morning, Mr. A.D. helped Titi, Dio, and even Bimbo before leaving. He kissed his wife on the cheek and said, Take good care of them, please. Always remember that Bimbo is your daughter, UAR. Sweetly. Of course, darling, she said. But the moment his car drove out of the compound, her face changed. She called Bimbo harshly. Come here, useless girl, she shouted. Bimbo ran quickly, scared. You will not eat food in this house until you learn how to respect me, Mrs. Funk said coldly. And you dare not enter the kitchen. Bimbo looked down sadly. Her stomach was already making small noises from hunger. That afternoon, Mrs. Funk cooked delicious jollof rice with fried chicken. The smell filled the house. Titi and Dio sat happily at the dining table, eating and laughing. Bimbo sat on the staircase, her mouth watering, her stomach twisting painfully. She wiped her tears silently, praying Mr. A.D. would call and check on her, but he didn't. Later that evening, Mrs. Funk and her children dressed up in fancy clothes. Titi wore a shining pink gown. Dio wore a smart white shirt and jeans, and Mrs. Funk wore a beautiful red dress and high heels. They were going for a birthday party on a boat cruise. As they walked out of the house, Bimbo ran to the door. Ma, please, can I follow you? She begged. I have never been on a boat before. Mrs. Funk turned and looked at her from head to toe. She laughed mockingly. You? Follow us? Looking like a house girl? She said loudly. Stay here and watch the house. You are not fit to go where important people are. Titi and Dio giggled. Bimbo stepped back slowly, her heart breaking. She watched them drive off happily, the luxury car disappearing down the street. The gate slammed shut, leaving her alone. Bimbo sat on the floor, hugging her knees tightly. Tears streamed down her face. She was very hungry, very lonely, very sad. Hours passed. The kitchen was locked with a big padlock. She checked the fridge in the small side room, empty. She was too weak to even cry loudly. Finally, she gathered courage and walked to the neighbor's house. The woman next door, Mama, was kind. When she saw Bimbo's sad face, she pulled her inside. Slowly, tears mixing with her food. God will help you, Mama whispered, touching her hair gently. Meanwhile, far away on the boat cruise, Mrs. Funk, Titi, and Dio were dancing and laughing. The music was loud. The water sparkled under the bright lights. Everyone was having fun. Nobody knew that trouble was coming. The boat cruise was full of excitement. Colorful lights blinked everywhere. Children were running around happily. Music played loudly as the boat moved gently across the sparkling river. Mrs. Funk sat on a chair, laughing with some women. Titi and Dio danced near the DJ, their faces full of smiles. It was a perfect evening. Mrs. Funk forgot all her worries. She forgot Bimbo sitting at home hungry. She even forgot the warnings the prophet gave her. She was happy, at least for a while. Suddenly the sky started to change. Dark clouds slowly covered the stars. The river that once looked calm started to move roughly. Waves slapped against the sides of the boat. The DJ stopped the music. The boat captain spoke into the microphone. Please everyone stay calm. We are experiencing a small disturbance. Everything is under control. But it was not. The waves grew bigger. The boat rocked dangerously from side to side. People started screaming. Children cried. Mothers grabbed their kids. Men shouted at the captain. Mrs. Funk's heart pounded inside her chest. She rushed to find Titi and Dio. They were standing close to the railings, scared. Mommy! Titi cried. Hold my hand, Mrs. Funk shouted, pulling them close. Then it happened. A giant wave slammed into the boat with a loud boom. The boat tilted dangerously. People fell over each other. Plates, drinks, and chairs scattered everywhere. Someone shouted. The boat is sinking. Panic filled the air. The boat leaned heavily to one side, water rushing in. Mrs. Funk grabbed her children tighter, her mind racing. God, please help us, she prayed. Life jackets were thrown around, but there weren't enough life jackets for everyone. Some people jumped into the river, hoping to swim. Others clung to parts of the broken boats. Screams filled the night. Luckily, a team of divers and river patrolmen nearby saw the trouble and rushed to help. They pulled people from the water one by one. Mrs. Funker was pulled onto a rescue boat, coughing and shivering. She looked around desperately. Titi! Dio! She screamed. Titi was crying but alive, holding on to a rescuer. But Dio was missing. Mrs. Funk screamed louder, her voice breaking. My son! My son! Where's my son? The divers kept searching. Minutes felt like hours. Finally they found Dio, unconscious but alive. The rescuers performed CPR quickly. After a few terrible moments, Dio coughed and gasped for air. Mrs. Funker fell to her knees crying. She held him tightly, refusing to let go. Her red dress was soaked, her makeup was ruined, but she didn't care. She just thanked God for saving her son. Anger boiled inside her heart. This is Bimbo's fault, she thought bitterly. The evil child caused this again. Later, after everyone was rescued and brought to the shore, Mrs. F sat down crying. She held Dio and Titi close, all of them shivering with fear and sadness. Then suddenly, she stood up angrily and shouted at the air. Bimbo! You did this to me again, you evil girl! People stared at her in confusion. Mrs. Funk wiped her tears, breathing heavily. She thought about all the bad things the prophet had said. It is her. It must be her, she kept saying to herself. She promised herself one thing. When she got home, she would deal with Bimbo. I will kill her if I must, she said under her breath. Back at the house, Bimbo was still sitting by the window waiting, unaware that a bigger storm was about to fall on her.